Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Now, before I start, that's it. My chair's just spun round and it covered the corner of my screen where I can see whether my microphone's working or not. So I thought I'd just double check, make sure you folks can hear me. Good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I'm sure quite a few of you will have been unboxing Warcry stuff this weekend. Some of you will have been tournaments. I know certainly at least one of you were at a tournament this weekend. So yeah, let me know what you've all been up to. We've got a nice little bunch in quite nice and early there. I'll nip through the chat there and say hello to a few people in a second. But tonight's subject is around the game. Sometimes you've got to have a little bit of a kind of a provocative title there, just to get people discussing stuff and see different opinions. And tonight is no different. And what I said is Games Workshop's boxed games are the future. Now, for those not familiar, boxed games are what Games Workshop pretty much call every game outside of their main Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar line. So games like Blood Bowl, Necromunda, Warcry, Kill Team, Adeptus Titanicus, have I missed anything out? The Night Vaults and sort of Warhammer Underworld, all of those things are all classed as Games Workshop boxed games, and they have a boxed game division who works on these things as well. And I'll comment on a few reasons why I think that these could be the future, and not only why these are the future, but why it's good for the wider tabletop industry as well. So if you're not into Games Workshop games, fear not. I'm sure we'll cover some of the others as well, but there is going to be a bit of a slant towards Warcry, especially this evening. Obviously, we've got the Season 3 of Underworlds coming out soon, with Beastgrave, I think it's called, and we've also got a second starter box for Kill Team coming out soon as well, which kind of came a little bit out of left field. So we'll talk about all those things tonight. So, who have we got in? Furious George was in nice and early. Good evening, Furious George, if you're still around. Peter Nicholas was saying he was just taking a peek to see who was in, and be back at 9. If you're back, Peter, welcome back to the chat. Richard Stockdale's in nice and early as well. Evening, buddy. Alan is in as well. Alan Cleary, good evening, buddy. He's saying he's in a great mood. Had a blast playing a couple of games of Warcry today, and he's evangelical about the game. Hence my interest in tonight's topic. Well, it'll be good to see. I mean, I don't know, Alan, what your background is before you started playing Warcry. Have you come from kind of bigger army scale games? Is this your first game? Good to get some context on that one. We've got Christian in. Good evening, Christian. Christian is the first one of my Patreons to achieve the exclusive t-shirt after 6 months of patronage at a certain pledge level. So thank you very much, Christian. We've also had a few more pledges as well. So we've got Alan Rogerson there on the screen as well, who upped his pledge level yesterday, I think it was. And I've just had an email come through as well. I've had another Patreon as well, who was, let me just check, Billy Mark. So if Billy Mark's watching, thank you very much, buddy. I assume at some point that should flash up on the screen. I don't know why it hasn't, but we'll keep going, and hopefully that'll right itself soon enough. Steve Evans is in as well. Good evening, Steve. Stuart Noble's in. Says evening all, Warcry. I won't scream that. I'm on baby duty again tonight. The monitor's there. My wife's away with work. So yeah, let's fingers crossed we're not doing now. Devon Smithwick's in. Good evening, Devon. He says there's so much terrain built this weekend. Tell me about it, fella. I built all of the core set, and I built all of the mausoleum set as well. My core set terrain is pretty much painted now. I had a real blast to it yesterday and a bit more this evening. And all of my mausoleum stuff is all primed, ready to crack on with that one. So yeah, painting like a madman at the minute. Hal Martin's in as well. Good evening, Hal. How are you doing, mate? Good morning to VJ. Nice to see you, fella. Mr. Pilak's in as well. He said, I like things, I think he meant. Steve's had a bit of a dig about Warcry there as well. Tom Glover's in as well. Good evening, Tom. He said, finally catching on one of these live rather than a catch-up. Would be rude not to get painting some of the insane amounts of Warcry while I watch. Yeah, I've built everything. Everything's built ready. The 2 starter warbands and the Cypher Lords are all built, but they're not primed or anything yet. That's the next job after the terrain's finished. And then I just put my pre-order in this morning for 3 more warbands and another terrain set. So yeah, it's all hands to the pump at the minute. I think I need to get myself a small army of helpers. just jumped off the top of the chat there. Let me see if I can find out where I was up to. VJ saying, seems Warcry coverage is bringing in lots of new faces. It certainly is, VJ. I've had a very nice little run on subscribers over the weekend, which is much appreciated, and it's nice to see some. It's nice to see a video kind of do well as well. It's the video I did on Friday night about the Warcry terrain's been really well received. It's had just shy of about 12,000 views since Friday, so that's pretty good. So yeah, I'm glad to see there's a sort of a good community springing up around it. Halcyon, welcome to Tom as well. Alan Rogerson's in. Good evening, Alan. How are you doing, mate? It says Warcry box arrived today, including the Cypher Lord's pressures on to get it ready. Yeah, I must admit, I kind of had gone through a bit of a hobby kind of painting lull a while back, but this has really kind of kickstarted me to get some stuff done again. Paul Palms is in as well. Good evening, Paul. How are you doing? Glenn Griffin's in as well. Good evening, Glenn. Nice to see you too, mate. Tom D's in. Animus Oculus says, afternoon from Argentina. Good evening to you too, and good afternoon, sorry, Animus. Where else we at? Got Cardos Dogforge says, hello, mates. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm very well, thanks, mate. Nice to see you in. Joel Wrigley's in. Saying, box games are the future and indeed the past. They've been releasing box games for years. They have. And I'll probably touch on that as well, because there's kind of been a patch in the middle where I think they kind of lost their way a little bit, and what some people might class as box games. I suppose that's a good place to start really as well, about what do I class as a box game as well. But I'll come on to that. I'll just catch up with a few more people. Miniature Adventures is in. It says it's the great Andy. Is that like some kind of magician? Claudio's in as well. Good evening, Claudio. Glenn Griffin is saying he's just finished gluing the Warcry terrain and assembling the Cypher Lords. Craig Lowther's in. Good evening, mate. Sam Goose says, I disagree. Oh, interesting. Aggression's in as well. Good evening, buddy, all the way from Teesside. Says, I've enjoyed the box. Still feel like the one time you get value for money. To be honest, I saw a video today where somebody was sort of trying to compare the price of the new Kill Team starter box and do you get value for money. It's actually quite surprising how much you save when you buy those boxes. Kodos says, Gen Con was amazing. Bought a bunch of Bushido minis. Nice to see that, mate. Seems to be getting a lot of love now with the second edition. Voltmans is in. Good evening, mate. Glenn Seymour's in as well. Nice to see you, mate. Just finally get to see a live stream after 3 weeks. Billy Mark, there you go, mate. Nice to see you, mate. I don't know if I missed you earlier on, mate, but thank you very much for your patronage, your Patreon support as well. It really is massively appreciated. Waiting for his Warcry stuff to come in. Yeah, you and a few others, I bet. Sam Goose says, is Warcry as good as Age of Sigmar? I've just jumped ahead a little bit there. Let me go back. Like I say, I think the future is high quality 40k computer game. Not if you want tabletop games, mate. Computer games will never replace tabletop games if tabletop games is what you want. Alan saying mostly Kill Team for SMG channel, mate. Nice one, mate. Nice one. I didn't put 2 and 2 together before and link you with that channel, to be fair. Sorry about that. Green Tree's in. VJ saying he has to laugh every time he hears the name Beastgrave. It's not the nicest of names, is it? That wasn't too great. Skullmuncher's in. Good evening, buddy. How are you doing? He says he's just had another game of Warcry as well. Al Crowie's in. Where are we going? Sam saying, is Warcry as good as Age of Sigmar? For me personally, Sam, it's better. They're not comparable really. They're different games. But it's better for me because I'm not looking for that big sort of army scale game. And I'm not looking for a game that plays on 6x4, and I'm not looking for a game that lasts a couple of hours. So it all depends really what you're looking for. I just want something that's a bit more streamlined, but gives me all the fun to play on a tabletop. And we'll touch on some of them bits and pieces as we start talking about box games. Solaris is in as well. Good evening, Solaris. Noxie's in. Says Mondays has been a nightmare. Different Gear TV's in as well. Good evening, mate. Matt Mountain's in as well. It's not the same without Matt Mountain. He says, just lurking tonight. Got too much on painting for #Mantic Mondays. Ruth's in as well. Good evening, Ruth. I think you should make your own little video about why you changed your mind about Warcry. Alan Cluley said, liked. Everybody wants to give the thumbs up to the video. That would be nice too. Rob Salter's in as well from the southern states. That's just jumped off the top of my screen. Said he's finally making the live stream. Miniature Adventure says, do you plan on doing some videos on the new Walking Dead Call to Arms? Not at the minute, mate. Not at the minute, I'll be honest. VJ says he's got the Gits cards. Honza Skypala says, here from Ulamuk, Czech Republic. I hope I pronounced that right, but welcome to the chat. Let's have a little Toxic Candies in from Minnesota. I'm just jumping around some of these names now because this is going to go on all night otherwise. Douglas is in as well. Good evening, fella. Chris Crawford's in as well. Good evening, Chris Crawford. And I think I've caught up with all of the names. Cool. Right, so tonight's chat. Yeah, about the box games. So I think some people, when I mentioned this on the Facebook group, were maybe missing what I meant by box games. So if you go to the Games Workshop site, you will see that they have a section called Boxed Games. And this is where they basically, they have a boxed game division who makes these, almost these starter set boxes, if you like, or these games that are based around starting from a box, I guess. Now, these games are things like Blood Bowl, Adeptus Titanicus, Warcry, Kill Team, Necromunda, the Underworld games, that type of stuff. Now, why do I think that these are the future? Now, I think that in the past, Games Workshop did make these box games, so things like Gorka Morka, things like Mordheim, Necromunda, back when it was in the day as well, and they were hugely successful. And then the Specialist Games Division, as they were called back then, decided it wasn't what they wanted to do for whatever reason. And I don't know the details, and I don't really want to kind of go into dig into the past. But for whatever reason, Games Workshop decided to move away from those things. And then they had a few years in that kind of that middle period where they were bringing out things like Betrayal at Calth, things like what were they called? Lost Patrol, Gore Chosen, games like that. Now, I liken those games to almost like the box sets that we get for 40k, like sort of now. Things like the Tooth and Claw set. I see them as sets that were just designed to sell a lot of miniatures, to kind of fund some new sculpts, to shift a load of miniatures for their big main games, 40k and Age of Sigmar. And they were never really, and whilst I don't want to do sort of a discredit to the games writers, because some of them, especially Gore Chosen for me personally, I found that a really good game, and I'm sure that things like sort of Underworlds is kind of, is leaned a little bit on some of its theme from Gore Chosen. You could even say that Warcry has leaned on some of its theme about chaos, people fighting. But there was that lull was really just about shifting miniatures. It wasn't about the games themselves. It wasn't really trying to get new people into the hobby as such. It was more. It was almost a Games Workshop Kickstarter. Like come and buy this shiny new box. You save a few quid, and we get to fund all of our new kind of stuff. So that was the kind of the start really there. Then we started to pick up a little bit. We had things like Space Hulk getting reprints. We had things like like Silver Tower starting to come in as well. And that was when there was a bit of a shift there. The importance came more across onto the game and less about just the miniatures. Although Silver Tower, absolutely fantastic game and miniatures range. However, they were always designed to just be almost one and done, self-contained games, if you like. So Space Hulk, there was never any kind of extra models released for it. Silver Tower had a few hero models, but to be fair, they could be used in AOS as well. But essentially, it was designed to be a bit of a one-off. Where they are now with their box games, which really launched with when Blood Bowl came back, really, is these are boxed games that you can buy for a relatively reasonable price. And I'm not saying they're cheap, and I'm not saying they're expensive. I think they're good value. I think you get a lot for your money. Whether you can afford them, whether you think they're expensive, is a different question. However, I think you do get value for money from them. What they've got now is with these games is you can buy them as that box set. You buy Blood Bowl in that box set, and you can just play that as a board game. You can play that 2-player and quite happily just play the game, put it all away again, and play it again another time like you would a board game. However, if you get bitten by the bug a little bit and you're into the miniature hobby at that point and you're enjoying building and painting, then there's a bit more to buy. You can choose some extra teams. You can decide to get some kind of captains or heroes for your stuff. Necromunda is very similar as well. So Necromunda, is it called Underhive or Underhive Wars? I forget which one it is. It's Necromunda Underhive. You can just buy that Necromunda box as a one-off board game. The tiles in there as well are all kind of like laid out for you to play it as a self-contained board game. However, if you enjoy it and you want to dip a little bit further into it, you will find that there's lots more things to buy. There's extra gangs to buy, like the Orlocks and the Vansars and all of those things. There's like the Ambots, there's extra bits, there's extra books which add more rules to the game, all those kind of things. And this is continuing more and more now. Kill Team did exactly the same thing. If you buy that Kill Team starter box, either the previous one or the new one that's coming now, you could just buy that and never buy anything else and just play it as a self-contained game in a box. However, again, if you get sort of caught up in the hype and you love the miniatures and you love the painting and you want to put more you want to expand your game, there are many, many things you can buy. And Warcry slots into that too. Now, one of the biggest things for me that these box games bring that Age of Sigmar and 40k will never bring is innovation. 40k especially, I think 7th edition, was it 7th or 8th edition? I forget now. 8th edition? Yeah, 8th edition was the closest thing we've had to a revolution in 40k in quite some time. But even then, there are too many people invested in 40k as it is, and have spent far too much money on armies and all of those things. And Games Workshop were burned a little bit by the backlash from killing off the old world and bringing in Age of Sigmar. That it's very difficult to truly innovate with those games. You can't stray too far away from the core ethos of that game. And it would be very expensive and very time consuming to try and overhaul it to a massive level. Look what happened with 8th edition with all of those extra codex books and that must have been a huge undertaking for Games Workshop to be able to take what was 7th edition with all those codexes and then basically re-release the game with a little bit more of a streamlined rule set. AOS is in a similar position. How old's AOS now? Probably about 4 or 5 years old now, something like that. It would take a hell of a lot now to completely revitalize or completely change even things like the turn structure, the dice rolling mechanic, all of those things. They're pretty much kind of wedged in now. But when it comes to these box games, this is Games Workshop's opportunity to really utilize their artists, to really utilize their sculptors, to really utilize their game designers and come up with some fantastic new ways to either use existing minis in the range or to completely sort of start again and give us some interesting mechanics. So things like Kill Team, when it had that sort of integrated turn structure of move, I move all my guys, you move all your guys. Some of them shoot depending upon what they did, and then there's a different kind of order of who gets to kind of close combat first. We could never have done that in 40k the way it is, but it works on that skirmish kind of small scale game. Think about how Underworlds with the dice mechanic, the way that works as well, the way the cards get introduced. You could never really do anything like that with the games as they exist. Warcry is exactly the same as well. I love what they've done with the dice rolling mechanic. The fact that it is, the fact that there is just that one roll now. There's just that one dice. Anyone that's listened to the Stormcast podcast, which is the Games Workshop official Age of Sigmar podcast, Sam Pearson, who designed the game, I think he was kind of like the main rules writer alongside Jervis Johnson, said one of the reasons that they streamlined this was because they wanted the game to feel brutal. They wanted there to be a lot of damage. So if you, and the way they explained it was, in Age of Sigmar, as it is at the minute, if you need to hit on a 4 and wound on a 4, there's only a 25% chance you're going to get that. So sort of one in every 4 times you'll hit, which is actually, it was a lot lower than I expected. Then if you then factor into that there's some kind of mitigation by people will have special rules that might ignore that. Then there's people kind of messing with your stats as well. So instead of being a 4 to hit, it's a 5 to hit. And then they've got a save roll on top of that as well. And then there's all sorts of kind of, you look at things like 40k, where you've then got like a Death Guard a disgustingly resilient roll on the end of that as well. You spend a lot of turns not really hitting each other or not doing a lot of damage. And what they said was for Warcry was that they didn't want that feeling of being able to kind of like climb up a building, run along the kind of the rooftop, jump off the end, come down and swing with an axe, and then just completely miss. It almost nulled the experience of what they were trying to create. So they took that out completely and just had this, you're either going to hit and do damage or you're not kind of thing, which made it much more brutal. And then what they did was to mitigate that, they upped the wound total. So you'll find that this game is brutal. You can stand toe to toe and trade blows. And yes, there's not much you can do about it, but that's part of the game, and it really simplifies that mechanic. Now, that kind of innovation won't make its way through to something like AOS. It won't make its way through to 40k because those games are just kind of so ingrained in the way they've always done things, the way the rules are. There's too big a crowd behind those ones to completely overhaul it. Like if you think about the way Age of Sigmar came in and the way the old world went out of fantasy, they decided to try and do something to innovate something. They decided to come in without any points. Now, like it or loathe it, that's what they did. But look how that almost kind of collapsed at that early point. It took the community to come around and create their own rules, their own kind of point costs, and the way of balancing them with wounds on war scrolls and stuff, till eventually Games Workshop decided to kind of sit up and take notice of it. You can do that with a skirmish game. You can take that kind of a chance now. I don't think they would ever do that again and be so quite revolutionary with one of their kind of mainstay games now. Anyway, I've rabbited for quite a bit. Let me have a little bit of catch up in the chat and see what people are up to. Where are we at? Glenn is saying, is there room for all these box games though? GW can only split their resources between so many games and there's only 52 weeks in a year. That said, mate, they have a huge staff of people compared to other miniature games companies. The last I heard, there was over 900 people employed at Games Workshop headquarters. That's a lot of people, and they probably split up into sort of specific teams, and they have their own manufacturing facilities. So they are, if anybody can do it, they can. And when it comes to, is there room for them all, they don't really expect you to buy every single thing that they sell. Now I know a lot of people do, and that's why people get up in arms going, I can't keep up with all this. It's 5 new releases every week. I can't afford to buy all this. They don't really expect you to buy everything. They expect you to be caught up in whatever game you play and to look forward to the next release and not have long to wait. If you think about when we went back years ago, like you would wait months, even years sometimes for certain factions to see anything like a codex or an extra model or something. So there's a few reasons why they do it. One is it absolutely floods retail stores. Retail stores only have so much shelf space, and they know GW stuff will sell, so it kind of cans off all of the competitors. It stops competitors getting onto the shelves, which is, as a business, is a really, really clever idea. But they are trying to make sure that there's new stuff coming all the time for people to buy, but they don't expect you to buy every single thing they sell. Glenn saying Space Hulk there was a classic board game. Yeah, you're not wrong, mate. Devon says, what's great is I can use all warbands in my new Slaves to Darkness army. It's something they build in quite a lot now. There's not like that redundancy, and I think a lot of people see these box games as a gateway into AOS or a gateway into 40k, and for some people they are. However, I think it's probably, you probably get some people trading down. You get some people using existing miniatures, trying out the new games, and it does introduce people. People definitely have less time on their hands these days, and it's not because they kind of all of a sudden they're busier than they used to be. They just do different hobbies now. People watch a lot of YouTube, for example, and that might just take up a lot of time that they're doing. People might just like in general they play a lot more video games these days than they probably did back in the day. So there's a lot more things vying for people's attention. Certainly the kind of the gamer of my age, people that sort of grew up maybe with things like the original Blood Bowl and Necromunda and stuff, are at an age where maybe they've got families and they've got sort of work commitments and busier lives. So these smaller boxed games can fit really, really well with people's lifestyles these days. But to go back to your point, I think it really is good that they managed to give you like a double use, if you like, for a lot of your stuff. Chat going on there. Richard Smith's in. Good evening, Richard Smith. He says he's still got Space Crusade. VJ said, I wish they'd bring out some sort of expansion or something for Speed Freaks. I enjoyed that box. See, VJ, I see Speed Freaks as more along the lines of they're selling miniatures boxes rather than their boxed games. They wanted people to. I mean, those would have been expensive molds to make in order to make those new Orc buggies. So what better way to make sure you shift plenty of them than to put them in a box game? Where we at? Dog Payton's in as well. Nice to see you, buddy. How you doing, Bazza? VG says I can see my Hero Quest and Space Crusade boxes sitting on the other side of the room now. Yeah, you can't see it there because it's just up there, but my Hero Quest box is up there as well. Douglas is saying this is a similar model to Kickstarter big box games, except the height is add-on and stretch goals. It is a little bit similar, to be fair, mate. And I think the way Games Workshop do it is they probably wouldn't get away, I think, with Kickstarter with the amount of money that they make. They wouldn't be able to sort of they'd never live it down, I think. So what they do is they know if they hype up a pre-order and put something in a fancy box, it'll sell loads. And that's kind of how they fund a lot of their mold making as well. Sam said he likes Age of Sigmar, but he's burned out from painting all the figures. That was exactly where I got to, mate. That's why things like Warcry, things like Kill Team, things like Vanguard for Kings of War as well. That's why those games work absolutely great for me. It's a lot less models to paint. And I'd rather paint probably the same amount of models as I would do for Age of Sigmar, but have 4 or 5 different warbands and have some choice for when I play. Where we at? Douglas is saying PSA, like and subscribe if you're new here. Thank you very much, mate. I've just seen we've got 100. We did have 103 people watching. It just dropped to 102 there. So it's nice to see we've got another lovely lively chat tonight as well. So welcome to anyone that's new here for the first time. Thank you very much for joining us. Jens is in as well. Says hello from France. Good evening, Jens. Billy Mark says I came to GW from getting into board games a few years ago. I love the GW box games. I've started collecting them. Just got Combat Arena, Stormvault, and Dreadfane. Kill Team made me realise I love to paint. I think what these box games do is they definitely give you a lot of stuff for your money. I mean, one thing for Kill Team and Warcry are perfect examples of this for me is as somebody that maybe just wants to dip their toe in even. And yes, £100 isn't cheap at retail price. Don't get me wrong, £100 for Warcry in the UK is not cheap. But you get your money's worth in the box, and I'm sure most of us probably got some kind of discount on that as well. But for that money, I've got all the terrain, I've got 2 war bands, I've got the rule book, I've got a board to play it on, I've got all the tokens. I don't need to buy anything else. A lot of 2-player starter sets for other games, things like Wild West Exodus, things like, can't even think now, who else has a 2-player starter set? Things like the Batman miniatures game even. Those 2-player starter sets are basically just tempt you in, have a little try. If you want to get a bit deeper into it, they're not full war bands, if you like. They're not full armies. You need to buy more stuff. You'll need to buy terrain, or in the Batman miniatures case, you get some in there, but it's not a lot. It's not really enough. There's no board to play on, and they're not that much cheaper in the grand scheme of things. So, and sometimes you'll get you might get a pocket-sized rule book, or you'll get a rule book that has all of the fluff missing, just to try and kind of shave down the price a little bit and get you to buy the bigger one. So I think a lot of the time, whilst the Games Workshop stuff does get a little bit of a bad rap about maybe the prices, I still think that they're not too bad value. At the end of the day, we're still just buying plastic toys, and £100's £100, but that's the cost, and it's not like they're not like 5 times the cost of their competitors or something silly like that. Different Gear TV says, I'm never buying any more 40k stuff again, only box sets. Yeah, I've tried so many times to get into 40k. I'm kind of glad I still kept a hold of the stuff and didn't sell it all, because it came in handy for Kill Team, but I started building my Space Wolves army, and it was because I really wanted to love 40k. I love the models, I love the lore and the background and the stories. Just can't get into the game. But Kill Team, I dove in with both feet. Warcry's got me reading the kind of the lore and the background for Age of Sigmar. I bought the anthology book. I'm actually really interested to know the history of these war bands and where they come from, and about the kind of the 8 points and all of that kind of stuff. I've never really been like that when it comes to a game in the past. This has just jumped up a little bit as well, so I apologise if I miss anybody off here. It's just jumping around. Paul Inman's in as well. Good evening, buddy. VJ says, agree on the single initiative dice rolls. What sold me on Warcry. It's definitely a great mechanic. I just like the idea that the fact that it really does simplify things, and I get that people want to see that kind of roll to wound, roll to hit, because it's quite thematic. Like, you know, shooting across the room. Did I hit you? Did I wound you? Can you dive out? Can you? It's almost, if I've wounded you, you shouldn't really be able to save it kind of thing. It should almost be a, can I save it? Right, I roll to hit. Now you try and save it. If you didn't save it, now I'm going to do the wounds. That would almost be a bit more kind of thematic, really. But I get why people want to do that. But when you start to break down the actual maths of it, I like the reasoning behind why they've gone with that single roll and beefed up the wounds rather than actually just putting more chances to miss. Animus Oculus says, with Underworld's Kill Team, Blackstone and Warcry, GW is teaching people that there's game life beyond crunchy rules, one-letter stats and infinite tables. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I think they've realised that sort of the sort of gamers are changing as well. And I don't mean the gamers that love and enjoy 40k. That's why 40k is still there and it's still massively supported and it's still a huge game. But I think they realise there's a lot of people out there who spend a lot of money on Kickstarter buying almost kind of miniature board games. So people like Simon have made a living out of it. Fantasy Fight Games have done similar things as well. There's games like Zombicide, games like Hate. All of these kind of things have almost stolen a little bit of the GW money over the years, and I think they're realising now that if they want, there's a market out there for people that want to play a 45-minute game, but they still want to paint miniatures, and they still want to have beautiful looking tables. They just don't have the time or the space or maybe even the money, to be fair. Because building a kind of a big 2,000 point army is not cheap these days. People just want to get in and play. So yeah, definitely. Paul saying there, when Kevin Roundtree took over, I'm sure I read a statement somewhere said GW's policy to make that there's something cool for you to buy each month, even if your army isn't getting attention. And I'd probably get that as well. I get why they would do that. The last thing they want to do as a business is just have months and months of nothing. Because there are companies out there who do go months and months and months. I mean, there's certain games haven't had a new model in years, but that's a shame, really, because there's some good games out there. But if you don't support them games, they will get left on the shelf. People, at the end of the day, we're all hobbyists, really. I think people who play miniature games, we all like to play, or a big chunk of us like to play the games. But there's a real part of it like that we love to build and we love to paint and we love to talk about it and we love to collect and we love to hoard stuff. If you play a really, really cool game, but then there's nothing comes out for it for quite a long time, it's going to kind of die a death a little bit, and you'll find something that you can buy. You'll spend your money elsewhere. Steve Smallworld's in as well. He said the crossover of miniatures in box games helps you have a standalone game, but help boost your big games. Yeah, when there is that crossover, it's great. For me personally, I don't mind so much because I tend not to play the bigger games, but I can see the attraction in it. VJ says, yeah, I totally agree with Speed Freaks with sell minis, still fun rule set. This is my point, actually, mate. It probably goes back to what I was just saying there, really, is it's a great game, but if they're not going to support that game will just die a death. Gold Chosen was exactly the same. There was kind of about 8 miniatures you could use for it. It's still a really fun game, but if it's not supported, it'll just kind of fade away. Phil Wilkinson's in as well. Evening, buddy. How you doing? Chat's just jumped off the top of my screen there. I'm just going to have to dive in somewhere because I can't see it. Starky's Man Cave says, Kill Team and Warcry are perfect products for me. I love GW, the minis, the lore, but I don't have the time or space for proper AOS or 40k battles. 100% agree with you, mate. Johnny Jambo Jambo's in. Good evening, fella. Christian's talking to Paul there. Let's have a look. Reluctant Artie just saying, how's that Space Wolf painting going, Andy? I think I might have just touched on it there, actually. I got to a point where I got enough to have a couple of options of Kill Team warbands, and then just I actually got kind of burned out just painting them all the same colour. It got a bit samey, and the fact that I felt I was so far away from being able to use them on the tabletop, it's quite kind of demoralising, really, and that's what's always put me off about bigger scale games. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing the Kings of War army, and I'm just trying to do it as quickly as I can. I think with the Space Wolf one, I felt like I wanted to really do it justice and do a really good paint job on it, but in reality, it's probably never likely to see the tabletop because it'll just take me too long. And I think I'm starting to realise actually that I get more enjoyment from having stuff finished than I do from the journey to get them there, if you like. It's why I'm kind of sort of blasting through my Warcry terrain at the minute. I mean, you won't be able to see this on the screen, but or maybe you can a little bit. But this is 2 spray cans and 2 dry brushes, and then pick out the metallic bits, and it's pretty much done. And it'll look great on camera. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. Where are we at? Sam's saying there, I think big games are good if you have the discipline just to collect one army. 100%, mate. There's a guy from my local games group who's sometimes in the chat, actually. I don't know if he's around tonight. But we've just been having this conversation kind of in the background that those games are great if you can just stick to one game, and especially stick to one army. But if you can't, you want to hide into nothing, really. Different Gear TV says a lot of people spend 100 quid in the boozer on a Friday night. That puts it into perspective. 100%, mate. My twin boys were over at the weekend, and not the weekend just gone, sorry, the weekend before. And we went out for breakfast in the morning. We had I had a cup of coffee. One of my sons had a cup of tea, and the other one had a hot chocolate. And I think we spent about like 8 or 9 quid on that. We then went out for lunch. We went to Nando's, I think it was. I spent 45 quid in Nando's for 3 of us. And then what did we do in the evening? Oh, it was the next day. I took them out for lunch the next day as well. We went to like a barbecue place and spent another 40 quid there as well. And all I had to show for it was was an extra couple of pounds in weight, really. That was about it. Sirius is in as well. Good evening, buddy. It says, I was going to buy a single warband for Warcry. Wife came with me, saw how easy it was, and now we're getting the starter box. Hobbying with my wife, never thought it would happen. First of all, thanks for joining the chat. Second of all, congratulations on having somebody very close proximity to play games with. My wife, she's not really into kind of miniatures games. Anything that needs a tape measure, she kind of gets a bit switched off with. But when it comes to board games, her horizons have massively opened over the last 6 to 12 months. And we, at least probably once a week, play a board game together, we're sitting together around the table and having the conversation rather than vegging out with Netflix. And that's been massive for us because we kind of almost like, we're ships are passing the night sometimes. We both work away at times as well. We've got a little one, so he sucks a lot of our time up as well, in the nicest possible way. So when we do get some time together, it's nice to actually sit around the table and play a game. So yeah, I'm glad you found something similar, mate. James Sullivan is in as well. Good evening, buddy. He said, not great about paying so much for a game, but please remember that in the US we pay the equivalent of £140 for Warcry. At discount, it might be as low as $119. Yes, I still bought it. Yeah, I must admit, buddy, the exchange rates. Excuse me. The exchange rates just baffle me. It's a fixed number regardless of what the pound's doing, and at the minute, it looks even worse because of the value of the pound sort of plummeting through the ground. You speak to the guys in Australia or New Zealand, they're even worse. I couldn't believe the amount of money that they pay versus what we have in the UK. So, whilst it's still one of those things, I think it's in comparison I don't know how it is within the cost of living, if you like. I don't like for example, when I sometimes go to Sweden to Sweden on holiday. I'll rephrase that. I work for a Swedish company. Sometimes I have to go to Sweden with work, and it'll cost me something like £11 or £12 for a pint of lager. I think that's horrendous, but compared to what they get paid, it's kind of in with their cost of living. So I don't know how that works with where you are in the US, mate. But you're right; it's not a direct correlation. William is in as well. Good evening, buddy. How you doing, mate? He says, interestingly, do board games make it harder for friendly local gaming stores? What do you mean make it harder, mate? Do you mean because a lot of gaming stores these days tend not to be just miniature game stores. They tend to sell a lot of board games as well. So explain what you mean. Yeah, Sirius is just saying come to Australia, mate. Voldemans is saying, I believe over the last 20 years, non-GW game producers' prices have slowly increased to come into line. Other producers were much cheaper years ago. I'd agree with that, mate. I would say that there's two reasons for this. One is they've all upped their quality. Games Workshop set the standard when it comes to kind of miniatures qualities. There are other companies out there who make fantastic stuff, but I think consistently the amount they put out, the quality they put out, they're kind of a bit like the leaders up there. Other companies have had to try and catch up, and things like Kickstarter have allowed them to start to fund sort of mass plastic production to try and catch up and to try and close that gap. However, with that comes higher costs, and they've had to put their prices up. So Games Workshop's not cheap. It's not inexpensive. It's not like they're kind of 50p a model or something like that. However, most companies are catching up now as well. It's not they're not half the price of Games Workshop kind of stuff anymore. William was saying, sorry to run tournaments, they need lots of terrain, and Warcry terrain costs a lot. Warcry terrain doesn't really cost any more than any other miniature game terrain, I would say. So, for example, a shop will buy a Warcry box at a discounted rate. So let's say, for argument's sake, and I don't know the prices, but let's say that they buy it from Games Workshop for £60, and then they sell it to you at £100. So it's cost them £60 for a box of terrain. If that means they're going to get people to come into their store and play, then it's probably not a bad investment. The other side is, if they buy enough from Games Workshop will give them a free demo copy. So I guess it depends. When it comes to tournaments, anyone that runs 40k events, anyone that runs AOS events, they all take a lot of terrain. And I'm sure actually, if you get a little community together at a local store, most people will have bought the core set. They'll be quite probably willing to bring their own terrain as well. So it can make it difficult, but no more difficult than any other kind of tabletop game. I think maybe you're relating maybe to something like Guild Ball, which doesn't have a lot of terrain. So in that respect, I would agree. Who else have we got? We got Jeffrey Parent in as well. Good evening, Jeffrey. How are you doing? Sam saying, how is your Kings of War Bristol army going? How far have you got? I'm probably about. I'm looking because they're over there. I'm probably about 1,000 points in, maybe slightly over now. But I'm doing them really basic, mate. The biggest, hardest bit for me is the fact that I don't really know much about the game, if I'm honest. So I don't know what's good or what's bad. I'm kind of just building the models that look cool. So no doubt I could get them on the table and find it plays awful. That's the only worry with it. That's one of the reasons why skirmish games I kind of prefer, because if I spend 30 quid on a warband and they're not much fun, I haven't kind of spent 100 or 200 pound on an army. Let's have a look. Hal's having a chat there as well. Jeffrey Parent in Montreal. Animus is saying he's got to run until the next stream. Thanks for coming in, buddy. Really nice to have us join us tonight. So, where was I? We're talking about box games. So how does this affect the rest of the tabletop industry? Games Workshop doing well with these box sets. How does that affect the rest of the tabletop industry? One is, other games producers have to up their game. They have to bring out better quality miniatures. They have to bring out better quality rule sets. And they have to do what they can to get on the shelves of retailers, because Games Workshop is dominating retailers' shelves. Now, I think there are companies that are doing this. Mantic did a fantastic job with Kings of War Vanguard. The game is fantastic. Some of their new miniatures really are amongst the best they've ever produced, and they've created a fun game with a relatively straightforward rule set as well. So they've done a good job. For all Guild Ball is kind of going through its, I don't know where we are now, season 3, season 4, something like that, and it's maybe not as popular as it once was, just because it's going through its life cycle, if you like. Games like Guild Ball really do. I mean, they've picked up from where places where things like War Machine were, where things like Malifaux were popular. They've kind of fitted in, and again, their kickoff starter box was another example of the perfect starter box with a board in there, with tokens in there, with miniatures in there. It was a really, really good example. And a lot of these companies now really are trying to up their game. They're trying to do different things. So if you look at Infinity, for example, from Corvus Belli, they've got Aristea, which is that like arena combat game, a little bit like Underworlds. They've also got Defiance, which is coming to Kickstarter later this year, which is a dungeon crawler based in the Infinity universe. It's forcing these companies to do different things, to try and bring out innovative mechanics, bring out something that's different, not just different for the sake of it, but something that either streamlines the rules or makes it more fun or brings something new to the tabletop. Daniel's in as well. He says, finally caught the live chat. Love the channel. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Daniel. That's really, really kind of you to say so. There's a bit of chat, people just chatting to each other there. Michael Marines is in as well. Good evening, buddy. He says, gotta love the rule of cool, especially when dealing with skirmish games. Yeah, pretty much everything I do these days. Actually, it's funny enough. I was sitting putting together the Cypher Lords at the weekend, and my wife was saying, so how would you know like which ones you build and stuff? Because I was trying to like weigh up the options of a couple of, you know how you can build them, one with like 2 swords and one with a glaive, I think it was. And she was like, well, how do you know which one to build? And it was like, just which one looks the coolest. I just like the look of the model. I've got to sit and paint it. I've got to push it around the table all day. If I don't like the look of it, then I'm wasting my time a bit. So yeah, rule of cool, definitely me. That's the way I play as well. Alan's saying Fantasy Flight have upped their mini quality so they're enjoyable to paint. Other games companies, Gloomhaven, provide a miserable experience to paint despite the plain experience. I must apologise for getting a bit shiny here. It's roasting with these lights on tonight. Excuse me for that. Yes, Fantasy Flight. Fantasy Flight were never really one for plastic minis, to be fair. That was never really where their kind of their skill set lay. And I think some of their first ones, obviously the X-Wing game, they did a great job with those ones, with the pre-paints as well. But then when Rune Wars came out, there were some decent miniatures. Unfortunately, the game didn't really sort of take off, although there were some fun things in that game. But again, that's another game that suffered from a poor release schedule. Star Wars Legion has some, the original core box has some good miniatures. I would say they're good enough, but some of the later stuff has definitely eclipsed it, and they're far nicer. You'll see now with the new Star Wars Legion Clone Wars box set that's coming out, they're all on sprues now, rather than the original kind of plastic ones that were in the original starter box. So they're definitely upping their game as well. They're starting to invest in some better tooling and some higher quality miniatures, because I think people expect better these days. You've got things like 3D printers and stuff now, capable, especially the resin ones, capable of producing some very, very high quality miniatures. And when people are sort of printing that kind of quality at home, you won't really suffer for kind of cheap plastic crap really anymore now. There's an expectation, I think, now when it comes to miniatures. Jeffrey is saying, I played a few skirmish games before, like Malifaux, Hordes, War Machine, Infinity, but boxes like Warcry with all the terrain, everything is such a good deal. Completely agree, mate. Yeah, I've played all them games you just mentioned as well. I loved Malifaux. Really enjoyed it in first edition, but then found that it was, because it was a bit of a weird kind of universe, it was quite difficult to buy terrain and stuff for it without it just looking like a kind of a cowboy game like a lot of people had. And that was when they brought them, what they called terrain clips, I think it was, that kind of card terrain that slotted together. But I ended up making like the World Works, like print your own stuff just to try and make it look a little bit different. War Machine, didn't really have a lot of terrain when I played it. I'm sure it's pretty much the same now as well. It was pretty sparse when they come to terrain. It wasn't the most attractive one, but Infinity is a great example of, yes, the new kind of 2-player starter boxes have some of that card terrain in there, and I think the newer one might even have, I don't know if it's MDF, but it's certainly better quality than the card. But if you want to play a proper Infinity game, you need a hell of a lot of terrain, and that's a big hurdle to people. People don't want to make do with a shoebox and a couple of tins of beans for now, because it breaks the immersion of the game. If you spend all that time painting your miniatures and getting them looking just nice, and then you put them on a table and you're fighting over sort of old coffee tins, it breaks that immersion of the game. Games like Warcry, games like Kill Team, even games like Shadespire as well with their boards or Underworlds, the immersion is there because you get the boards, because you get the terrain and stuff. Terrain is something I never really bought much of. I relied upon my games clubs or my game stores and using theirs. So it's quite nice to get these boxes with the terrain in now. Sam says to paint a big ollie, I do them all at once. I paint them one colour and then dry brush. I'm starting to get to a point, mate, where it's weird because I was going to say I lowered my standards, and I guess I did. I lowered my standards for how I would paint them. But actually, the finished product, if you like, isn't that bad. Like, if you saw the orcs that I did, the iron jaws that I did them like in one night. The 5 iron jaws, I knocked them out in one night, sitting watching Netflix while my wife was out. And I took some shortcuts and I used contrast paints and all that kind of stuff. But when I was finished with them, it was like, actually, they're pretty damn good. I'm happy with them. You know, I'm not embarrassed to have them on the table. Hal was saying, oh man, Rune Wars minis game was terrible. Didn't help announcing Star Wars minis game 3 months after launch. Yeah, they didn't do themselves any favours. You can pick up those Rune Wars starter boxes now for almost pennies at like conventions and stuff. It was a real shame that they did that. Douglas is saying, I played competitive X-Wing. The attraction wasn't simply the Star Wars theme, but painted minis. Unfortunately, the game demanded you buy another starter box and the game became bloated. I would agree that was a little bit sad. And I like the fact that they've gone back and almost retconned it now and tried to change, try to revamp it a little bit. But I do dislike, and I don't like this about Underworlds either. I hate the fact that you have to buy stuff that you don't really want to get the cards that you need. It's one of the reasons that I like the way that Warcry comes with the cards that you need for that warband packaged inside it. I like that model. I like the way Vanguard do a similar thing as well. Kings of War Vanguard. The cards for your warband come with the miniatures when you buy them. I don't like the idea of having to buy a box of minis. I don't really want just because the cards inside give my faction a boost. Where are we at? Billy Marcus saying, what got me excited for Warcry is that it seems very simple to teach and to pick up. I enjoy Kill Team, but there's no way I can explain how everything works to someone without having them read the rules. It's funny because I felt like Kill Team, excuse me, I felt like Kill Team was quite straightforward when I first started playing it. But then I think I then kind of realised I was missing half of the rules out, or half of the options, if you like. So I hardly ever played with like the specialisms. I don't think I played with like the command cards or any of that kind of stuff. I just played for fun, really, and it is a little bit overly complicated. Warcry is perfect. It's exactly what I'm looking for, and I'm absolutely hyped that it's here now. I'm hyped that I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm really glad it was better than I expected. As you might have seen, my kind of like why I changed my mind about this video. I wasn't expecting it to be good. I was expecting it to be a bit of a letdown and a bit of just a way to kind of another way to sell miniatures, I guess. But I'm really pleased with what it ended up being. Noxie's just saying, just saw the best Infinity tables today. I'll send you the link later. Please do, mate. I'll be interested to see them. Infinity looks absolutely fantastic, but it tends to be about £300 or £400 worth of terrain on a table. Marco's in as well. Good evening, Marco. He said, box games allow to bring variety and reduce the upfront investment. Nowadays, there's so many options out there. Customers don't risk investing all the money time into one system. That's quite interesting, actually, because it was something I wanted to touch on tonight. is that I would love, I mean, I'm never going to be able to do this, but I would love to see some facts to see how much of sort of 40k or how much of AOS is bought by new players coming in to play AOS or 40k with the intention of building a full army and starting from scratch and just coming in. How much of the miniatures are bought by them versus how much of the miniatures are bought by existing players who are expanding armies or are starting a new army while they play another one. I find that things like 40k and AOS are they're a time sink, they're a money sink, and they're a commitment, really. They're a commitment to get into. I'd be really interested to understand how many people actually are getting into those games sort of brand new now. What's the flow of new players into those games, or are a lot of it? Are people buying them for the miniatures because they love painting them because they're beautiful? Are people buying miniatures for Kill Team? Are people, like, as an example, Warcry was announced. They released what models you could use in from the existing AOS factions, and then things like Iron Jaws went out of stock. The Vanguard Hunters went out of stock for Stormcast. I think Nighthorns went out of stock. That box of Bone Splitters went out of stock. Like, they weren't going out of stock before. There was just this mass flood of people buying them for Warcry. So I would love to know what the uptake is now of new people getting into those hobbies. Or are we seeing the tide turning? Are Games Workshop seeing the tide turning? And that's why we're seeing so many of these box games coming out. I forget what it's called now, but we've got that the flying game coming out later this year as well. And obviously they're releasing a second starter box for Kill Team, so they're trying to get more people back in on that game as well. Paul saying, I need to order a can of Zandri dust for my Kill Team scenery, but because it's dangerous goods, the postage is about as much as they can. I used a very similar colour to that, mate. And I bought mine, I know you're not in the UK, but I bought mine from Halfords. This is Halfords camo khaki, I think it is. So I started with a camo brown, primed it all brown, and then I kind of very, from above, kind of 45 degrees zenithal highlighted it with the khaki colour. And 2 cans of that cost me like 14 quid, which much cheaper than the GW stuff. And then this has had a couple of layers of dry brushing on it. I think it was your Shabbaty Bone and Screaming Skull, I think. And then that finished it off. So yeah, just get something local, mate. Have you got like an auto store or something like that? Something like the equivalent of like a Halfords auto shop. VJ saying his contrast paints have arrived yesterday. Looking forward to smashing out some squigs. Yeah, that's another thing I completely changed my mind on as well. I was quite impressed with them when I used them in the right way. Billy Mark says he loves the look of AOS minis, and Warcry will let me build a bunch of warbands. Yeah, I quite fancy a little Stormcast. I mentioned this, if anybody saw, I was on the Top Table gaming channel on their live stream last Wednesday, and I mentioned I quite fancied building a little kind of Stormcast warband, but painting them up as if they've been almost kind of like living rough for a while, like hiding out in the wastelands, rather than the shiny gold, have them much more kind of dinged up and a bit battle damaged. I think it would look cool. Sam Goose says, should I buy... Where's it gone? It's just jumped off my screen. I think he said... Oh, there. Should I buy Underworlds or Warcry? The difference is, mate, they're very, very different games. It depends on what you want. My personal opinion, I prefer Warcry, but in saying that, if you're just going to play for fun with a couple of mates locally, or with like a brother or sister, or somebody at home, or a wife or husband, or whatever it is, if you're just playing it casually, Underworlds is really, really good. It's when you try to play competitively that it just becomes this kind of like this arms race. But it doesn't stop the fact that it's a really fun game. So it depends on what you want, mate. Michael Marines is saying that's been the biggest game changer for me, learning that not every mini needs to be a competition quality. Completely revitalised my hobby. Me as well, mate. I spent so long just struggling to get stuff done because I was a pretty decent painter. I was painting quite a bit. My models were speaking personally, they were a pretty good standard, but I could never achieve that quick enough. And getting stuff finished was a real problem for me. I could paint the odd kind of miniature and show it off and go, happy with that. And that was as far as that little warband or that army got. Getting to a point where I just thought, finished is good enough, it kind of freed me a bit. I definitely did. Billy said I was in the same position with Kill Team. My friend and I would just play Kill Team and we left a lot of the extra rules out. The thing is, mate, it's a fun game if you just do that as well. Like, you shouldn't feel that, like, you're not leaving stuff out and missing out. You are getting fun and enjoyment from your game. That's one of the things I love about Warcry as well, is the fact that actually there isn't really anything to leave out. If you forget to use your abilities on your card, you forget to use your abilities, it doesn't make much difference. But you're not intentionally missing stuff out to make the game easier. Glenn says, speaking of Kill Team, hopefully Warcry won't start seeing stuff discontinued like the Kill Team stuff did a couple of months after release. I think it depends on how popular it is. I don't think it's about it being discontinued. I think a lot of it is just about it selling out. Kill Team really did catch Games Workshop out. And I think their release schedule is so busy. If you saw my video about the truth behind kind of limited releases, I think it literally just caught them out. I think they sold out and basically they didn't have a slot in their schedule to make more. They've been trying to get planning permission for a new production facility for quite some time now, and that's been approved now. So we should see some of that starting to ease off. However, I just think because of their release schedule, they make so many of them, and if they sell out, they don't always get time to go back to them. So will we see the same thing with Warcry? I'm not trying to scaremonger, but it's quite possible. It's quite possible unless they have massively sort of overproduced in the early days. But I haven't heard anybody missing out on it so far. That doesn't mean that it won't disappear 3 or 4 or 5 months down the line if it sells out and they haven't made any more. But it sounds like there was enough starter boxes to go around. I haven't heard anybody missing out. Will C, good evening, Will. Nice to see you, buddy. It says Underworld boxes should all see expansion. The game actually requires everything to work well. Yeah, I bought everything from the first season, and then I got to the point where I'd say I'm not chasing this anymore. Quite happy playing with what I've got. It's a fun game. There's some rules in White Dwarf this month which show you how to play kind of like a free-for-all game with just one model each. That might be quite fun to do. But yeah, they are all expansions. You're right. 2+ Stuff is in as well. Good evening, buddy. Fantastic channel, by the way, as well. It says Infinity is amazing, but learning the game is like drinking from a fire hose. I couldn't have put that any better myself, mate. It definitely is. There's no kind of drip feed. I mean, I've got a couple of their starter boxes here, and they're pretty good. But then the jump from that to the main Infinity rules is like, whoa! Hang on. Just everything at once. You can't learn it piecemeal. It is quite a difficult game. It's a steep curve, and it's one of them games where it's definitely one of them games where the winner tends to be the person who knows more rules, and that's a shame. Paul Eamon says if you're not looking at either X-Wing or Underworld in quite the right way, I think you're not looking at them. They might have miniatures, but they're deck building games. The cards are the game. I would agree with their Underworld. That is definitely a card game with miniatures, without a shadow of a doubt. But there's a lot more tactics, I think, in the maneuverability of X-Wing. I think it was just their business model that made you buy cards or expansions or upgrades from ships that you didn't really want. If they just included the ship, like if they just included the cards for that ship, all of the upgrades available with that ship in that box, I think it would have felt slightly different. But I completely agree when it comes to Underworlds. Paul Palm says, serious question, do you need all the cards to have fun playing Underworlds? No, not at all, mate. However, if you want to go and play like competitively, then yes, sadly you do. There's a real meta around those cards, and some get banned, and it's quite a fast moving kind of meta around that game. But if you want to just have a sort of roll some dice and move some models around with mates, it's fun as it is, mate. Buy one of the starter boxes, like the core sets, like the Night Vault one or the Shadespire one. Buy one of them and you'll have a great time. Don't worry about the kind of the meta and everything else. But if you're wanting to dip your toe in competitively and play kind of store championships and stuff, it gets a bit crazy. Sam saying AOS is really good. I have almost 3 1,500-point armies painted now. I like the game, mate. It's just it's not the game it used to be when I first started playing. Where we're looking at, I've got down. VG saying, once you prime base coat with an airbrush, you never go back to Rattlecan. I have, mate. I have, because the sheer amount of terrain I've got to do would have taken me forever with the airbrush. I've managed to blast through this. Like, I've done 2 sets of terrain in a day, basically. If I'd had to do it on my airbrush, it would have took me a hell of a long time. I'll go back and I'll do the airbrush for my miniatures, but for terrain, I blast through it. Where are we at? Will see you saying Blitzball is fun. I'm hoping they put out Lizardmen support for it. Blood Bowl takes forever, annoying to teach. We didn't get Blitzball in the UK. I'm not sure whereabouts you're from, buddy, but I think it was an American only release, I think. And it's a shame because I've heard nothing but good things about it. Noxie saying his mate at GW says first Underworlds players score very high, experienced score low, because the opponents are so focused on stopping the other from scoring. I can imagine that, actually. Like, it's almost like beginner's luck type thing. 2+ Stuff saying, when it comes to these box sets, my wisdom for others is assume it's limited. Hope it isn't. Yeah, that's kind of mine as well, mate. If there's something I want, I'll try and pre-order it, or I'll try and get it like quite early in its life cycle. If it's something that I'm not too fussed about, I'll just kind of give it a miss. And if it's out of stock, it's out of stock. I haven't really missed out. I don't feel the need to chase everything. However, I do try and kind of keep some hobby savings for when those things come out that I really do want. Billy said, I'd love to play some of these rule-heavy RPG in a box type games, but they never get to the table. Sometimes throwing Zombicide on the table for quick fun. Core space game seems cool for that. Yeah, it is, mate. It's another one of them things as well where it's just fun. It's just fun. If I had a weekend kind of retreat with all of my like sort of best gaming buddies, and I wanted to play a really kind of crunchy rules campaign thing, I'm not even sure. You know what? It's insane that out loud. I'm not even sure I would. I think I'd rather play about 4 or 5 different games and just have fun. So for me personally, I think my days of kind of really heavy rule sets are long behind me. Gary Powell's in. Good evening, fella. He says, evening all in chat. Contrasts completely changed my enthusiasm for painting. I'm cracking units out 1 5-hour sitting alongside a couple of other minis. I wasn't set against it. When I tried them at the UK Games Expo, I thought they were awful. But they gave me a massive big wash brush and a Space Marine with really smooth kind of panels on his armour. Since I've tried them with a smaller brush that I can control the flow better, and on a miniature with lots of detail, I can see their attraction, and I really do like them for certain jobs. Jason Collins is in as well. Good evening, Jason. Says any folks interested in trying Underworlds should pick up Nightvault or the new Dreadfane. Yeah, Dreadfane is another one of them things I think is the US only as well. It's a kind of like a scaled down version, isn't it, of Shadespire? Gary saying, so today I'm 9 Bolt Action Soviets, 1 Spider-Man, Hero Quest, Goblin done. Talk about mixing it up, mate. Shaggy Wargames in as well. Good evening, Jack. VJ says, Blitzball is awesome. It was a US Germany release. Yeah, I knew it wasn't UK. I knew it was kind of Barnes and Noble in the US. Germany feels a funny market. I wonder why Germany. Paul says he's got a soft spot for Underworlds because it's the only game I regularly play casually. Yeah, and if you play it casually, that's awesome, mate. Any game that you play that you have fun is a great game. Never let anybody tell you that you're gaming wrong or you're hobbying wrong, that's for sure. Glenn said he's back, just quietly cleaning and building some models. Can't wait for the weekender. Yeah, me too, mate. It's creeping up fast. VG is saying it's probably his favourite G. I think I remember you saying that before, mate. That's Blitzball, isn't it? Glenn says, Andy, will you be doing Warcry bat reps? I'm not sure, mate. I'm not sure because my honest opinion, they take a long time to film. They take a long time to edit. And unless I can bring something different to the table that other channels aren't, and I can get somebody to film with who has bags of enthusiasm as well, they're just a bit dull. You need me, like, bat reps for me need to be done where people are having fun. You need to kind of feel like you're in the room with them having a laugh. Otherwise, it's like watching a game of chess. So if I can bring something different to it, 100% I will. But I'm not sure yet. I will definitely be doing bags of Warcry coverage, plenty of stuff. But I'll probably throw the odd bat rep in there and maybe test the water, I think. Sean Varshaw's in as well. Good evening tonight. He says Blitzball was only released in the US and in Germany, similar to Dreadfin. Yeah, the US I get, massive market. Germany, I'm just surprised they were going to release it in Germany. Was the Japanese market not maybe like sort of a bigger opportunity? Who knows? Maybe Germany's an untapped sort of diamond for them. Alan Rogerson, Andy, thoughts on Shattered Stormvault terrain coming up for Warcry? First thoughts, I've ordered it. I like the look of it. I'm not sure how practical it's going to be, but in combination with some of the other stuff, I can imagine it might look pretty cool alongside some of the Mausoleum stuff, and even potentially the core set stuff as well. So, yeah, I've ordered it, mate. We'll see what happens when it comes. Starky's man cases. I bought Shades by it still seal. I regret it now. Just didn't want to miss out. Might have been a limited release. I do what you do now. Yeah, that's the way to do it, mate. Douglas is saying, please do a play stream, not a bat rep, just fun live games. How do people feel about that then? Would people rather see just like a live game, two people sitting down having fun, or would you much rather see a really kind of slick edited bat rep? Because for me, it's got to be about the fun for me. Like if I'm not enjoying playing it on camera, you'll be able to tell that. VG is doing the Beast Rave dance there. Glyn says, is Jason interested enough in Warcry? I know he dived into Lord of the Rings easy enough. Jason's on holiday, so he's been away for a week already, and he's not back till next week. So we've hardly spoke about it, if I'm honest. He obviously knows I'm getting it. He's probably seen the pictures and stuff, and he's commented on a couple of Facebook bits. But he's not seen the stuff yet. He's not sat down and played it yet. So who knows when he gets back? Maybe he will. Michael saying, what are your opinions on certain stores getting exclusive games? Here in the US, Barnes & Noble getting Blitzball, just GW trying to attract a different audience. I think it is. I mean, those stores are pretty big. I think maybe they're testing the water. At some point, it wouldn't surprise me if you see them kind of stuff like in Walmart or kind of stuff like that as well, trying to break down them barriers between specialist miniature games and sort of just games or toys and games, if you like. Maybe that's the point when it starts to break down. So I can see why they do it. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not really sure. I've not played them games to know whether it's worth the hassle of picking them up. Glenn saying, if you do make bat reps, you should try doing something similar to how Guerrilla Miniature Games did with his Warcry coverage. I'm not keen on those kind of shaky hand cam things. I agree if you try and do it as a campaign type stuff. I've even looked into getting like a kind of a handheld gimbal thing so that it's a bit smoother and stuff, but I'm just not sure I see the kind of the return on the investment of putting the hours in. So as an example, I did a video on Friday night, which was kind of a really quick one, just trying to help people, and it's done like 12,000 views since Friday. That's because, for me, videos need to be one of two things. They need to be helpful, so they either need to be teaching you something, they need to be teaching you how to do something, they need to be kind of showing you how to make something, or they need to be entertaining. And bat reps for me are a bit of a weird mixed bag because they don't teach you anything unless you're looking to try and see how the game plays, and the entertainment has to come from the people playing. So I'm always a little bit wary when it comes to bat reps, if I'm honest. Like for me personally, other channels do it great. Like the guys over at Top Table Gaming have done some really, really slick bat reps for Warcry. But for me, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure the juice is worth the squeeze, I think is the phrase. Where we're at. VG is saying, I was tempted to get Dreadfin as a replacement for getting out of Underworlds. Could be a good move, mate. Sam says, what do you think about box games not getting big models like Carnosaurs or Repulsors? Doesn't really bother me, mate, if I'm honest. If I like the look of a big model and I just fancy I want to paint it or something like that, just buy one to paint it. Like I do that, but not getting them to the table. It doesn't bother me personally, but I can see the attraction. I think if you're into the big stuff, and the big games are probably where you want to be, really. So, Carl is in as well. Good evening, Carl. He says, I see live games rather than back reps. That way you can find people who don't mind being filmed. You can do live board games, 3 players, etc. Yeah, it's a funny one, actually, getting back reps and stuff. I've been doing this nearly 3 years now, so I'm used to talking to a camera as if there's somebody sitting at the other side of it. But other people get really kind of like a little bit starstruck and a little bit kind of like a bit like caught in the glare of the camera kind of thing, and they get uncomfortable, and they're natural. Some of the best people I've ever played against freeze on camera, and their personality doesn't come across, and that's really hard. It's really hard for that. So when you get a channel where people are kind of like they're bouncing off each other, really good like sort of rapport, that's really entertaining. 2 Plus Tough saying nailed it. Videos need to add value to viewers. That can be defined in lots of ways. Yeah, I see it from both sides. I see it as a creator and I see it as a viewer. I watch a lot of YouTube. And it depends upon what I'm looking for. Do I want to just switch off and have a laugh and watch some funny videos? Do I want to be entertained that way? Do I want to kind of watch? There's a channel I watch called Corridor Crew, who do a lot of like special effects. They are special effects artists, and they'll look at videos, sort of like famous movies, and they'll kind of almost break down how special effects have been done and stuff. I find that kind of stuff interesting. I watch a lot of Peter McKinnon's videos. He's got a lot of kind of technical stuff about sort of photography and video making. So it's you've got to add value to the viewer. If the viewer's not enjoying it, like, and I kind of, even these live streams, I have to, it really racks my brains to try and come up with a topic that will get people chatting. Because if I just said next week, we're just going to have a random chat. We're just going to talk about whatever. We'll see what crops up. People wouldn't come in for that. People, like, for example, I've been talking about kind of like Games Workshop stuff and Warcry for the last 3 weeks, and the views have gone up like through the roof because people are interested. People want to know about the games. If I just sat here and went, just talking about painting, or we're just talking about anything you want to talk about. They're fun, those ones, and you get some really cool questions, but there's not a lot of like it's a slow interaction, if you like. You've got to give value to viewers, and I find bat reps are a really fine line. There are some channels do the most amazing battle reports, but there's about 6 people and they've got about 3 cameras and they're in a studio. When you can get to that level, you can deliver. Like, can you imagine trying to watch a football match on YouTube if it was just a guy running up and down the touchline with his camera in his hand? Like, this is what I mean. And there was no commentary. It was just him running up and down trying to follow the ball. This is what I mean about how bat reps are a bit of a weird mixed bag. Different Gear is saying, I'd like to see more box games that can be played solo as well. That's an interesting one as well. I'm surprised GW haven't kind of tipped a little bit more into that solo area as well, because solo gaming is a lot bigger than it first appears. I'll say, and watching bat reps is like watching sports. Yeah, it can be if you're really interested in the game, and again, it's a bit like watching kind of video gamers, like streamers on Twitch and stuff playing video games. They either need to be really, really good, so you're learning stuff from them, or they need to be really, really entertaining so that you're having fun watching it. If it's just some guy sitting in his bedroom not really talking, like quite average at the game, you ain't going to get a lot of views. Skullmuncher said to Glenn, loving Warcry at the minute. He's had 3 games so far and they've been a blast. I think I've just seen 12 Meefers in as well. Good evening to you, buddy. Steve saying, I watched a couple of the top table Warcry battle reports and the quality was great, but the game looked meh. They've done a great job with the editing of those as well. For me personally, and I've said this to Jay as well, I think sometimes you lose some of their personality. They're really slickly edited, but I think some of their personality gets lost a little bit. Marco says, don't bother with bat reps unless you bring something new. For example, you could show a bat rep with a crossover with Kill Team and a custom warband from 40k. Yeah, it's got to be something different. Reluctant Archie says, that's the NFL mate running around with a hand cam. I love NFL. NFL's my sport, mate. I've kind of given up a little bit on football or soccer, as you would call it. My local team got relegated many times, and it's just not the same anymore. I've lost in the UK. Especially in England anyway, if your team's not in the Premier League, you're almost kind of forgotten about when it comes to coverage. And I used to play NFL. I didn't play NFL. I used to play American football years ago when I was younger, and I've always kind of watched it. But now I buy like a season pass for the TV and stuff, and I'm hoping to head to Wembley in September or October, November, whenever it is. October, I think it is, to watch a live game as well. Yeah, VG is saying solo player box games would be awesome. Carrie's in as well. Good evening, Carrie. How are you doing? They've been trying to get scenery done. Black's Cleric says, great stuff, BlackJack Legacy. Just found your channel and wanted to say hello quickly. Thank you very much, buddy. Nice to have you aboard. Starty's Man Cave says, non-league football actually do that for home videos. Yeah, that's what I mean, mate. It's like, it's the difference between somebody doing that for like kind of your local non-league team versus having like sort of Champions League final, isn't it? Paul saying welcome to the party to Black's Cleric there as well. Will C says the bait and switch fun intros followed by dad jokes, also re-roll in one style. Skullmoy says hope everything okay to Glenn. Al clearly says go Patriots. Oh, we might have to butt heads there, mate. I'm a Rams fan after last year's final. Oh. No hate though. BJ saying Dreadfane sold out online at Barnes and Noble. That makes the decision for him. 12 Neat says I love the GW board games. Nice and fun, great for newer players. Where was it? If you have the dice itch to scratch, shame more experienced players thumb their noses. Yes, that's one of the things that does kind of frustrate me a little bit when the more experienced players almost dismiss these games before they've even given them a chance. They might not be what they want, but that doesn't make them bad games. And it's one of the things I've been saying about Warcry, that basically it's not a massively kind of deep, complex game. But by the same stretch, it's not a simple roll of dice and see who wins. Johnny Jumbo is saying if you do a bat rev, don't do guerrilla miniature game, ash and talk at 200 miles an hour. Keep it northern and slow. Some people would say my northern's quite fast actually, mate. So I'm glad you're keeping up, that's alright. Douglas is saying it's funny because he gave up on hockey to watch the Premier League for the same reason. Who's your team then? Am I right in thinking you're a Liverpool fan, Doug? Is that right? Or are you? I think I am, but let me know. Are you a Liverpool fan? Jason says, check out my Jacksonville Jaguars this year for your Wembley game. I'm thinking I want to go and see the Rams, mate. They're playing against, or is it the Ravens they're playing against? I forget. Or is it the Bengals? I forget now. Forget who the game's against. But yeah, NFL's my game now. Williamson, you've inspired me, Andy. I started Guild Ball Gamer, now GB Gamer, because I wanted to film the fun I had with my mates. Now I voice over and it's harder and doesn't feel as rewarding. I'm going back. Honestly, man, like let's be honest with each other here, right? None of us are going to get rich making YouTube videos, right? We're not making any kind of like serious money out of this unless we're getting up to kind of 100,000 subscribers and above. It's never going to kind of do more than pay for your hobby, if you like. So everything you need to do needs to be about having fun. If you're not enjoying yourself on camera, then people can tell and people won't watch, or they'll just put it on in the background and they won't even really pay any attention to it. People want to see energy. People want to see excitement. They want to see you having a good time, and it rubs off on them. That's that. So yeah, go back, mate. Do it how you enjoy it. That's for sure. Glincy, which game are you looking to go to? Yeah, it's the Rams and the Bengals, mate. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I'm looking to go to, mate. Sam says, will you play a battle with your Abyssal Force and make a battle report? I'm not sure, mate, because I've never played Kings of War yet, so I've got no idea whether whether it's a game I could even film. The problem I find is the bigger the board, the harder it is to try and film it. And another thing that people kind of like might not realize is, and they always criticize people who make rules mistakes online. When you're filming a battle report, you're thinking about, right, is there a shadow shining on the board? Is everything in focus? Have I got the camera in the right place? Is the microphone picking me up? Can you see what I'm doing? Is it interesting? And then on the top and the back of this is, right, now I've got to remember the rules, and I've got to remember the tactics, and I've got to remember all this kind of stuff. It actually sucks the fun out of playing the game sometimes. The best way to do it is like William was just saying there, set a camera up and just have fun. The guys at Battlehammer, this is where they really do a great job. They just set the camera up and they have fun playing the games, and their community has grown up around them having a laugh. And all power to them. I love the fact that they do that. They do it purely because they love doing it. And I love doing this. And yes, I try and kind of up the quality a little bit, and I'm interested in the kind of the tech and the gear and the cameras and the lenses and all that kind of stuff. And I try and do things like a little better. But it's always about enjoying it first and foremost. You'll be able to tell if there's a video that I've done that I've not enjoyed. You'll be able to tell very, very quickly. BlackJack says, great coverage of Warcry, really enjoying your live streams, great to paint to. I'm really glad people are kind of sort of like enjoying them, really, because I do these purely because I just enjoy them. Like, I've been really fortunate. The community that's grown up around this channel is fantastic, and I love getting the opportunity to just chat and have these kind of conversations. It feels like I'm kind of sitting in a local gaming shop with like a load of buddies, and we're just kind of like shooting the breeze, chatting about games. I love these Monday Night Lives. They don't tend to drive millions of views, like none of my videos do, but they don't tend to drive thousands of views or anything like that. It's more just about the interaction and having a bit of fun. And Monday nights, I'm never away with work, so I always know every Monday I can be at home. My little one's been asleep for a couple of hours. I can get him down to bed at 7 o'clock. I can have some food, jump on here at 9 o'clock, and have my live stream. So it's kind of nice to see like a few more faces in the chat and stuff, and see the numbers going up a little bit, and that people like to just pop these on in the background and paint along to them. I kind of almost think of them as a little bit of a podcast type thing. So yeah, I'm glad people are enjoying them. AMC is in as well. Good evening, AMC. He said, new to the channel, do you think Warcry Warbands will get new models? 100% I think they will. If you look in the Warcry book, and I took a photo of this. I'll pop this photo in the Facebook group as well. So anybody that's new here as well, I do have a Facebook group, which is BlackJack Legacy. I can't even remember the name of it now. Let me just double check what it's called. It is called BlackJack Legacy Tabletop Gaming Group. So if you're new here, please do come over and join the Facebook group. And I'll put a picture in there tonight. But let me just find the picture. And I took a picture of it from the Warcry book, because there is a model which is an unmade model, and it's called the Unmade Ascended one. Have a look in the book for it. And it's not in the unmade starter box. So I'm assuming we're going to start to see maybe like hero characters, or we're going to see kind of maybe like duo packs or something like that, or maybe even like a complete new warband for that faction where you can mix and match the models. So yeah, I think we'll definitely see those warbands getting extended out. Where we at? Skullmunch is saying go Penguins. I think Penguins are a team if you're an ice hockey, mate. We've got Marco's a Seahawks fan there as well. It's amazing how many NFL fans are coming out of the woodwork now. Sam saying, really love the look of the Abyssal Vanguard Force, only 25 quid. 100%, mate. If you see any of my Vanguard bat reps, you know, them bat reps that I never like doing, I really enjoy doing the Vanguard bat reps. I played against my son both times, and we played with the Abyssals on those two live streams. We swapped over, and I played with him one game and he played with me the other game. What you'll see in there is the £25 starter box thing, the kind of the core box. That's all I needed. And the Basileans was the same as the £25 box as well. So yeah, definitely fun. Don't think I realised you were in New York at 12, Neef. I don't know why I didn't realise that. RT saying he's all about the club, but he's in neutral. Glyn saying it's the week after the weekend. Yeah, I know. That's one of the reasons I'm kind of... hedging my bet. I've got a lot of brownie points in the bag for that one. My wife would come with me, but it's hard to find it because it's in London. That I'm pretty much the other end of the country. It's pretty hard to get a babysitter for that kind of length of time. So I might have to go on my own, I think. Marco says, "Is that why you lost to Az when you played Super Fantasy Brawl? Were you too focused?" No, I lost to Az because he's played about 25 million more games than I have. That was like my third or fourth game, I think it was, of Fantasy Brawl, and that two new models, I think it was. Robbie Last says, "This channel works for me because it's like having a painting buddy in the morning." Thanks, Robbie. Very kind of you to say so, mate. Do you want me to kind of just give you a nudge as well? Tell you you need to wash your brush. You've missed a bit. Douglas says, "I think the Monday Night Live gives you." Oh, so again, I think the Monday Night Lives you do are some of the best YouTube I've seen, and the community is excellent. That's very kind of you, buddy. Like I say, I really do. I just do these because it's fun, and I love the I love the crowds and stuff that come into here as well. And I honestly do feel like I'm kind of like making friends in here. When you've got a YouTube channel and you sit in front of a camera and you just talk to the camera and then you upload it, you can kind of interact in the comments a little bit. But it's sometimes quite hard to kind of. It's almost a very slow kind of conversation. When it comes to these Monday nights, I get to know people. I'm starting to know people's names are, where they're from, a little bit about them, what games they're into, that kind of stuff. And that's all part of the fun. I really love it. Steve is saying, "I happily watch a live stream Warcry battle report if we did one, mate." We might do one Monday night. Maybe when Jason gets back off holiday and I've given him a few games and stuff. We might do one Monday night because the games only last about 45 minutes. They're perfect for the live streams. I've enjoyed doing the live stream, like kind of games we've done. So we've done The Walking Dead. We've done Here's Negan as well. We did the Fighting Fantasy book. I quite enjoyed doing the Monday night ones. BG says I should start paint during the live show, but 6 AM isn't prime painting time. Yeah, there's a lot of people actually who do live streams like me sitting here, but sit and paint while they're doing the stream. I couldn't do that. I couldn't concentrate on the painting and concentrate on the conversation and keep an eye on the chat as well at the same time. I'd definitely get lost. Jason says, "People keep mentioning Blood Bowl, all I can think of is Warcry." Blitzball is great, but like Underworld is a smaller version. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Blood Bowl, if I'm honest. It's a little bit too... it's another one of them games where the person who wins is the one who knows more rules. Flying Mammal said, "Try to link to the group, but YouTube deleted it." Yeah, sometimes they don't like to put links in. If anybody is looking for the link to the Facebook group, it's in the comments. It's in the description of this video. So underneath the main screen, there'll be a description, a bit of kind of information. And there's links in there to the Facebook group, to my Patreon page, to my affiliate link with Element Games. And also if you're shopping on Amazon as well, you can. I've got an affiliate link for that as well. All them little bits and pieces just help to kind of keep the lights on, I guess. Jack saying, "That's what I thought. There will be hero models later for warbands, maybe even mercenaries. Will they put on sale the 2 warbands in a box?" I don't think they'll put them on with different options. They'll definitely put them on sale because they did the same thing with Necromunda. And it would be a shame anybody that didn't want the starter box if they couldn't have those factions, for example. Starty's Man Cave saying, "We have Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Do you think you'll ever see GW do a Warhammer Fantasy Legacy game in the vein of Gloomhaven?" No, I don't think we will, mate. I think they're a miniatures company first and foremost. While they make some fantastic rule sets, they're a miniatures company first and foremost, and I don't think the legacy thing really would fit with that. Noxie saying, "I love the live stream as it motivates me to hobby on a Monday instead of video gaming." Nice one, mate. Marco says, "Andy's amazing and we're a great punch." Couldn't have said it better, mate. Flying Mammal says, "Night. Thanks, buddies. Good night, Ruth. Hope you have a fab week and I'll see you next week." Paul says, "The best live stream of the week, hands down." Very kind of you to say so, mate. Christian saying good night to Ruth. Richard Richardson as well. He says, "God damn it, Andy, this is the 3rd week about Warcry and now I've got in my basket at Amazon because of you." What can I say, mate? I will give you a game at some point just to say thank you. Glenn says, "Proceed to check out." 2+Tough says, "Question, do you like the Walking Dead's mechanic of noise and how it draws the undead? I'm looking to modify it and add it to Warcry." Ooh, interesting. I do like it because it's like you've got to you've really got to think about what you want to do with your actions, and it's almost like there's like a moving dangerous terrain that moves around the board as you do. It's one of the things that I'm not as keen on in Call to Arms is the fact that once the walkers have activated, they don't move anymore. They're done. I like the way in Walking Dead All Out War, I like the way they get pulled around and kind of the ebb and flow of the battle. So they hear a noise and they move one way, and then they hear a noise somewhere else, so they move a different way. Yeah, I really like it, mate. And I think it could work well in Warcry, especially with the size of the board. Having those kind of like monsters flying about, or the kind of beasts flying about, could be quite cool. Let me know, mate, if you do manage to come up with something. Let me know. I wouldn't mind giving it a try out. Tom is saying Blood Bowl 2 video games actually pretty good. Everybody's agreeing about it. Yeah, nice. Glyn saying good night to Mammal. Richard says he's hovering over the checkout button. What you got to lose, buddy? You can always use the terrain for Vanguard if you fancy it, or for Kings of War as well. It would make some good Kings of War terrain. And Richard saying you are on. Matt saying he'll play as well. Nice one. We've got a little gaming group going there. So it's just after 10:30. I'm going to call it a night now. Thank you every single one of you that join these Monday night live streams. Thanks to everybody that's subscribed over the last first of all, over the life of the channel. But I've had about 400 subscribers in about the last week, which has been awesome. Really, really sort of a bit overwhelmed by that. So thank you to all the new subscribers to the channel as well. And yeah, anybody that's watching this back later, down in the comments, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the box games. Tell me what your favourite GW box game is. And I will now spend the next 7 days racking my brains to think of a topic for next week. And I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.